We're back with the Daily Stripe now today, Tuesday, national championships over. Joe DeLeon of Hack City, the Ruffino and Joe Show, a.k.a. Believes Nancy Reagan, joins, along with the birthday boy, Jake Irvine. Jake, happy birthday, man.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
And welcome to the first time on the mic, dude. How does it feel?
This
Good?
is my first public appearance with Believe. It feels great.
Well, you've done the officer rounds, and people know you from that. Your stoic, solid takes. Shout out Peter Warwick from Florida State, who could be contending next year, the national championship. We'll see. I want to get your guys' initial reactions to what was a piss-poor performance out of TCU last night. Joe, you had gone on record and said that TCU was not only going to cover the 13-point spread.
I thought they were going to win.
Yeah.
Look, I don't think that was a wild take, and everyone's giving me shit for it. It's fine. I don't care. My justification for it is all season long, TCU has done the unthinkable. They have outperformed the expectation from the start of the season when they were projected to finish 7th in their conference. They were able to pull out a lot of wild late comebacks. They are known all season long as a quick hit team, a big splash play team. But that team didn't show up. That team was not available for TCU. I don't know what the hell team that was, but they got their asses beat. They bent over. They took it. They were not willing to show up and fight back to the beating that they took. Georgia.
Bent over and took it. That's why we call Nancy. That's why we call you Nancy Reagan on the show. Drake, you've coached, you've played from the defensive side. Why was Georgia so dominant?
Yeah, they were just fast. You know, I think to the point of attack, playing sideline to sideline, I think their speed was just kind of too much in space for TCU. I think also Georgia did a really good job coaching-wise, out scheming them on both sides of the ball. TCU had no sort of matchups, no sort of adjustments for a lot of 3 receiver sets that Georgia was giving them. Mm-hmm. So they were just manipulating cornerbacks' eyes, killing their cover 2 looks, killing soft quarters looks. It was just kind of like that perfect marriage of having better athletes and having better coaching.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that we saw when we were down there, like just being around the players, Georgia was just so much bigger. Size, more so than the NFL, in my opinion. Obviously, speed kills, and you can't coach that, but size in college football matters. And the size of the linemen on the defensive side and on the offensive side, it was just
so different.
Night and day. I mean, like, look, when Stetson Bennett was running, like, he had an amazing game, and who knows what he'll be as a pro. Probably nothing more than a backup. But when he's running for those touchdowns, I mean, Noah's Ark 2x2 through those holes, literally. And I'm not talking about, like, the peacocks. I'm talking about elefantes, dude.
Right. And it's the reason why the blue chip ratio is something that's brought up by a lot of analysts when we talk about college football. It's not like in the instance of the NFL where everyone has a first-round draft pick. Everyone has top 10 draft picks from when they were bad, and then they develop that talent. With college football, it's how many 4- and 5-star recruits do you have? There was a vast difference in the amount of talented, big-name recruits that either roster had. And it showed up on the field. It showed up on the field in so many ways, like you just talked about there, Drake. But look, I want to say this. As Stetson Bennett, is he quite possibly had the easiest path to winning 2 national championships in terms of the amount of help that he has around him? No. I think on any other team, he's not doing that. He's not even coming close to accomplishing that.
Yeah, but like,
it's not his fault.
It's not his fault, but I think I
is Greg McElroy doing it on any other team? What about AJ McCarron?
Yeah. But that's my point. I think that there's going to be an over-evaluation, giving way too much credit to Stetson. He had a great game, but you just talked about all the wide open lanes. There was no struggle for him. As for most of the season, there was no struggle for him.
But even still, especially last night, there was a lot of throws where he put the ball in a place that only his receiver could get it. And it's been like that all season. His accuracy is great.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we've seen average quarterbacks have really good wide receivers, and they throw terrible balls, and they can't get these guys open, overthrow deep balls, things like that. Stetson did a good job of making plays when they matter. You know what I'm saying?
Let me ask you this,
you need somebody to drive the ship.
Yes. Let me ask you this because I know what your answer is going to be. This season, were you more impressed with Stetson Bennett as a quarterback or Anthony Richardson of Florida?
I'd say it's Stetson. I think Anthony had a lot of like oohs and ahs and like great playmaking ability, but there's something to controlling the tempo, the pace, and being a leader of your team. And there was no doubt that Stetson Bennett was the heart and soul of that Georgia football team. You know what I'm saying? Like, who knows what sort of leadership Anthony Richardson was really showing for his team. And granted, they didn't have the same success Georgia didn't have the same talent Georgia did. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know. I feel like we can't discredit guys who do their job. You know, it's like, don't turn the ball over. give our defense, long fields, make it easy for our guys to win. He did that.
So that's what Purdy's doing in San Francisco.
Right.
Exactly.
He
Don't fuck it up.
He did his job. I don't disagree with that. But we watched this game. We've watched them all season long. He is the least pressured quarterback in the SEC, one of the least pressured quarterbacks in the country. If that offensive line is maybe missing one less starter, or you put in a lower quality starter and he's moving around a lot more, he's having to question himself. He makes mistakes. But he wasn't forced into any situations most of the season to make any mistakes. Mm-hmm. It's easy to be accurate and on time and ahead of schedule and moving the offense with pace. And again, I give him credit for he seems like a great leader, and I think a lot of guys really like him. But at the same time, it's not a challenge to accomplish that if you have all of that around you. And we've seen
I'm with Drake. Like, you have to do your job. Like, if
he did his job, but
if you didn't have this, if you didn't have that,
he has a whole minute to make decisions and see what's
if his
developing
aunt had
in front of him.
nuts, it'd be
His uncle.
And Todd Monken also scheming up a really easy offensive game plan for him. There is no struggle for him. I just don't see a guy who, and this is why I'm out on him as an NFL draft prospect.
Sure.
I just don't see a guy that can step up past the limitations of a roster. Like, he has everything going for him. Everything going for him to succeed. I give him credit.
It's all time and place in the NFL. Like think about, like, seriously though, like Alex Smith, like, by and large, he is probably what Stetson Bennett could be in the NFL. Like, a good game manager, like
Alex
a good
Smith
quarterback.
was a first overall pick.
But he didn't play like that for years. Because the hand he was on a terrible
roster.
The hand he dealt was bad versus Aaron Rodgers. I mean, obviously Aaron Rodgers is a world-class talent, but he got dealt a better hand. Sometimes the hand you're dealt, like Tom Brady, is an unbelievable player, probably the best player ever, but was dealt a pretty good hand. A roster that was built to contend with Drew Bledsoe.
But he was supposed to be a backup. That is an outlier. That is an absolute outlier, and I don't think
Bennett's a starter, but I think if he gets a chance to play like Purdy is right now, I think he's a guy that can succeed.
That's his absolute ceiling.
Sure.
It's his absolute ceiling is a spot starter when the guy ahead of him goes down. That's the furthest extent that I'm willing to commit to Stetson Bennett. Nothing more than that.
You know who really needs to step up? EA Sports. It's not in the game. We need the game because we need to settle it.
Yeah.
That's the only way. Let the junkies who are, like the streaming junkies who are absolutely epic at these games get on and play, except for the one dude that runs the ball every play. I don't really mess with that. That's kind of lame. Or simulate this team. Seriously, this team. The Mac Jones, Devonta Smith, Waddle, Najee Harris, Alabama team. Obviously LSU, Auburn, VY and the Horns, Leinart, Reggie, Lendale White, shout out to him, that USC team. Like, we need to settle which team is the best team of all time, and that's the only way to do it.
There's no debate, though, in my eyes. I think that this team definitely stacks up with a lot of those ones that you just named, but that 2019 LSU team,
no one's beating them.
That would have been a blowout if that 2019 LSU team played that Georgia team in the national championship game. They do not have the secondary to keep up with those dudes that LSU had at receiver and Joe Burrow in the way that he was playing that year. No shot that game would have been close. There's a huge
You don't think
difference.
there's any team in the history of college football that could take them? Or do you?
No.
That LSU team?
Who do you think?
Miami 2001.
Florida.
Yeah, I would give
Florida.
Florida had some good teams. I think a couple USC teams. I just think the way the game is played nowadays, the way the tempo and the spread and the schemes these offenses are kind of like these offensive coordinators are putting together, it's very hard to coach against whether you got good DBs or bad DBs,
right.
Good defense, bad defense. So it's a little hard. It's like, judging errors for basketball. It's like, how would a traditional 4-3 defense who rarely has a fifth defensive back on the field scheme up against LSU 4 wide, 11 personnel half the game?
Does anyone want to pull like a 1920s Army team? Can we try? What do you think would happen if we had like one of those? Probably like 250-0.
Witchcraft. Witchcraft.
We just saw a 65-7 final.
Jalen Carter going up against some 250-pound center.
Dude. Against you.
I'd be a starting center back in the day, probably.
In the NFL, potentially. You wouldn't be a
Not the
long
NFL, but for Army, 100%.
All right, we'll book it there. Josh Fisher, Joe DeLeon of Hack City, Joe Ruffino and Joe Show. What other shows you got? You do a lot.
The First Team and the Believe in NFL Draft
Of course, the First Team. Got a shout out there. Yeah. And Drake Irvine, happy birthday. Thanks for joining.
Much love, everybody.
Show. All right, I'll see you guys next time.